Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at how a city's big plans, Pocheon City's future 100 years, vision specifically, how that intersects with a whole new national political landscape. We've got a source here talking about the incoming administration, which it identifies as the Lee Jae-myung government expected around June 2025, and how that might impact Pocheon's local dreams.
That's right. And this material, it's really interesting. It lays out Pocheon's 7 key projects, but it also looks hard at, where the opportunities are with this potential new governance priorities, things like balanced regional development, the peace economy. But crucially, it also points out the hurdles and the dependencies. It's about synergy, sure, but also about where things could get tricky.
Exactly. So for you listening, we're going to dive into this source. We'll try to understand Procheon's main initiatives, see how they might, get a boost from the national agenda, and also figure out what the article flags as the really critical factors for making it all happen. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this first big theme the article raises. It's this idea of connecting opportunity development zones and educational development zones. What's the core concept there, according to the source?
Well, what's really fascinating is how they're trying to build this kind of positive feedback loop. The main plan, the source says, is taking the return Sixth Corps site, that's an old Army base land, coming back to the city and turning it into a center for the advanced drone industry.
Yeah.
No. And to make that work, they want to set up a specialized high school focused on drones and also build stronger links with universities, create the talent pipeline.
Right. And the source suggests this particular vision, it lines up pretty well with the incoming government's likely focus. It does, yeah. The source is quite explicit, saying this direction aligns accurately with the new government's expected policies on regional balanced development.
Right.
Trying to spread growth beyond just Seoul and also fostering those high-tech industries. And Mayor Baek Young-haenen is quoted saying Pocheon wants to be a good city for businesses.
Yeah.
That sentiment, well, it seems like it could get some traction, especially if the new government strengthens support for small and medium-sized businesses, which the source also anticipates.
Okay, so things like support for the Pocheon Eco-Green Industrial Complex or maybe the Pocheon Business Center,
Yeah.
those could potentially get a real push.
Yes, potentially significant momentum there. But the source adds a really important however. It stresses that actually getting that central government support, it really depends on Pocheon putting forward a genuinely different, a special model for its zone. And they need to show they have the practical ability, the planning, the connections, the sort of bureaucratic skill to actually win the national budget money through close work with the ministries.
So just having the idea isn't enough. Execution is key.
Exactly. Navigating the government channels is crucial.
Okay, moving on from industry. The article also talks about improving daily life, things like transportation and the living environment. What's the source say about transport plans?
This is presented as a really big deal for residents in the article. Key projects mentioned are extending Subway Line 7, the Ocheon-Pocheon extension, and also pushing forward plans for the GTXC and E lines. Those are the faster express rail lines for the wider metro area.
And these train lines, they fit with the national picture too.
Yes, the source explicitly links them.
Hmm.
Says they align with the new government's stated commitment to expanding the transport network across the metropolitan region. Combine that with local road projects, like building the Swanson Tunnel. The article suggests this could really change things for Pocheon, make it a proper transportation hub up there in northern Gyeonggi.
And what about just making the city, a nicer place to actually live? Does the source mention green spaces or environmental projects?
It does. It talks about significantly improving the residential environment. Specific plans include redeveloping the Cheongseongsan area, turning it into a kind of green healing space for people, think parks, recreation, and also revitalizing the Pocheon stream, the Pocheonchen, making it more of a water-friendly leisure and cultural spot right in the city.
And these kinds of quality of life projects, do they also mesh well with the expected national priorities?
According to the source, yes. These plans are seen as creating synergy with the government's focus on urban regeneration, fixing up existing urban areas, and residential welfare, basically improving people's lives where they live.
Okay, now this next one. The article flags it as maybe having the biggest potential and also the biggest question mark. That's the bid to attract the Hanton River Peace Economy Special Zone. What's the vision for that?
It's quite ambitious, actually. The core idea is to take the Hanton River, which has unique geological value, ecological value, and importantly, it flows across the border between North and South Korea, and leverage all of that turn it into a driver for both peace-building activities and economic development. A sort of peace through prosperity idea, maybe.
Right. And where does the potential new government fit into this particular very symbolic project?
Well, the source suggests that and it's a big if the new government actively gets involved in pursuing a Korean Peninsula peace process, then this Hampton River project could suddenly get a huge amount of attention, national, even international focus and momentum.
But that if is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, isn't it? The source seems pretty cautious about the risks.
Oh, absolutely. This project, more than any other they discuss, is described as being almost entirely reliant on the central government's policy towards North Korea.
Hmm.
And, of course, the wider international situation. Geopolitics, basically.
So if relations between North and South cool down, or if something changes internationally, the whole project could just deflate.
Precisely. The source uses strong language. It says it carries the risk of losing significant momentum if relations get strained. It really underlines that what Pocheon can do on its own here is clearly limited. So the strategy, the article argues, has to be about being flexible, ready to adapt, and staying very, very closely aligned with whatever the central government's stance is at any given time.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all together then. We've got the drone industry and education link, the transportation and green space improvements, and this very high-stakes peace economy zone idea. What's the main thread the source keeps pulling on about Pocheon's chances of success under a new national government?
The core message, really, that comes through again and again is the absolute necessity of close, proactive, strategic policy coordination with the central government. It's almost a case study, isn't it? It shows how even a really well-thought-out local vision needs that national buy-in, that alignment to actually happen.
Right. So whether it's getting the budget approved for those special zones or getting the national backing for the subway extension, or even just navigating the incredibly sensitive peace zone, it all boils down to that relationship with Seoul.
Exactly. The source emphasizes that this moment, with a new administration coming in, requires Pocheon to be smarter, more strategic than maybe ever before. How they frame their projects, how they talk to the ministries, how they position themselves to actually secure the funding and the political support. That's the game, really.
And the article mentions the mayor's commitment.
Yes. Mayor Baek Young-hin is quoted. He says he wants to pursue these projects not just with words and theories, but with the attitude of a servant for the citizens. So the article kind of leaves it as the big question, doesn't it? Can Pocheon City, in this time of significant political change nationally, can they actually manage this complex coordination? Can they turn these opportunities, these potential synergies, into real, tangible benefits, that greater happiness for the people living there?
So we've taken a deep dive today into Pocheon's ambitious plans for the future, looking at how they align or might clash with the expected direction of a new central government. We've seen potential boosts for things like their drone industry ambitions, transportation links, greener living spaces, but also acknowledged that huge variable, that uncertainty surrounding the peace economy special zone.
Yeah, it's a really clear illustration from the source material of how local ambition, however strong, is deeply intertwined with national policy and, frankly, national budgets. The source highlights those points of connection, the potential synergies, but it's also quite blunt about the practical challenges. Implementation, securing funds, managing those relationships with the central government, and even dealing with external factors like international relations.
It definitely makes you think about that intricate dance between a city's vision and the priorities set at the national level.
And that brings up a final thought for you, listening. When you see a local area like Pocheon lay out such detailed plans, how much of their success is actually within their own control? And how much just comes down to the political winds blowing from the capital or the complexities of bureaucratic coordination? What could cities even do to build more resilience, maybe, against those kinds of dependencies? Something to think about.